Now, as we turn our attention to the individuals behind this outstanding project, allow me to introduce the first student, Mr. Connor Hennessy.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to present our demo so you can just basically go ahead and see exactly how our app is currently running. And Brandon, I can go ahead and share my screen, right?
Yep, go ahead.
Great. Okay, so briefly, when the user clicks on the app and restarts it, you'll be prompted with our loading screen, just a brief book loader so they know they're getting in. We have our landing screen, which again just kind of provides a deep basic description. So Mouse Mastery is your guide to navigating modern technology with ease. Whether you're using an Android, iPhone, Windows PC, or a Mac OS device, our app empowers beginners to explore and master their operating system with step-by-step tutorials, intuitive interfaces, and personalized support. Mouse Mastery is your trusted companion on the journey to tech proficiency. Start your digital adventure today and unlock the full potential of your device. And our user will go ahead and click start. They will select which OS system they want to continue with at that current time. You will have an email and password prompt, which I will briefly pull out just for the purpose of navigating to the next screen. They will sign in. And here is where they will be brought to their different modules. So just to start off, we'll just show off our iOS emulator here. So they can click open, just like any iPhone you normally have in real time, just holding it. They can navigate their screens, go through their different apps, and just kind of get a better understanding of just how to utilize the new phone that they just purchased if they're just very unfamiliar. We also do have our Windows emulator here, which will allow them to navigate it just like any other Windows PC. So you can click open your Windows tab, check out your weather, stocks, and every other articles that usually would pop up. It will also allow them to navigate the file explorer, just like in real time, where you would go through your documents, music, pictures, etc. And for the purpose of showing how they can kind of practice through the modules, we'll head to our Mac emulator here, where we can click into our downloads folder. Now the user will have a set of instructions here, so it'll prompt them easily along the way. So we'll click continue here and click on our downloads folder. So from here, it's giving us a prompt to find the lion photo. So we can click continue. And in the event that the user does mess up, so let's say they search through apps, education, or React.js, they will have a hint pop up, which is kind of emphasizing where the lion picture is. And then again, it will instruct them to find it. So we'll continue. We'll find our lion picture here. It will then prompt them to close the window as they've completed that task. So we'll go ahead and complete it. And it will congratulate them. You did it. Great job. So kind of just reinforcing that positive reinforcement mostly, so they know that, they feel a little bit more confident maybe with their new devices. So now we can go ahead and head into some more detail and how just present here. So I'll go ahead and more so just formally introduce myself once this pops up. Move over one slide. Okay. So again, as Brandon mentioned, my name is Connor Hennessy. I did grow up primarily on Long Island, New York, in a small town called Ronkonkoma. My curiosity for technology began earlier on, just kind of when I was introduced to my first video game. That kind of just, that was my intro to tech. I didn't have a computer when I was super little, but I did get to mess around with my N64 and all those old consoles back in the 90s. So that's kind of what piqued my interest. Initially, I was introduced to Nebula by their current instructor, Abe Johnson. So thank you for that, Abe. Throughout this cohort, I've definitely gained a deeper appreciation for all applications I typically use. Now knowing that more so about the work that goes into creating and maintaining them, and I could definitely say I was taking a lot of apps and softwares for granted. Currently, I am working with Renewal by Andersen, which is a window and door company, as their lead operations associate. So I'm typically utilizing a CRM program known as Salesforce, reviewing client contracts in tandem with building their product virtually through Salesforce, and just kind of ensuring that along with the product being built correctly, that all ETAs in terms of their projects getting sent back out to us make it here in a timely manner. So with that, I do plan on utilizing my current job experience alongside what I have learned through this course to obtain a career as a platform developer in Salesforce. I have been using Salesforce for close to 6 years now, so kind of get ready to head into the non-user side of things in terms of Salesforce. So some of my capstone roles involved creating and styling our loading page component, which was that book loader that you all had seen previously. I was responsible for assisting with the development of our backend Express server, including API GET requests and the configuration of just some other routes. I also was responsible for creating and styling our landing page component and our selection page component, which is where you saw the user will select which module they want to kind of start practicing on. And I helped create and model our ERD for the backend database structure of the app. So for the selection page component, just where the user chooses a platform icon to basically start their training. Just kind of wanted to make it user friendly. So again, because this app is for people who are kind of technology illiterate, so we wanted to ensure everything was labeled, very UI friendly for everybody, so they knew exactly where to begin their journey into terms of training on their OS system. And essentially all the selection page component just displays those logo icon buttons. And then again, once the icon or the selected button was selected, it kind of triggers that start button so they can go ahead and move forward. So in terms of backend development, more so just, again, retrieving the data from the database. This example that I have here was just the two functions we did happen to use with the API requests, which were read and read with join. The read function just fetches all data from a specified table, and the read with join functions handles more complex scenarios. So if we needed to get some more tutorial info from multiple tables in our database, we can do so without having any issues. So in terms of our loading and page styling, this is just some of the CSS that I used to kind of create that book loader that you all had seen initially. Took a little bit of practice to kind of get that flowing correctly, but I thought it would kind of emphasize this is a learning app, this is what you're headed into. So that pretty much sums up all my contributions. There aren't any questions on anything I just discussed.
Sure, I got one for you, Connor. So I noticed that you did a lot of 3D animation with that book loading bit in the front of your application. Can you tell me more about how you managed to accomplish that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the styling of the book originally definitely wasn't the hardest task. Getting it to kind of simulate the pages turning was a little more difficult. So I did have to kind of, go down the rabbit hole of CSS just a little bit. I did happen to implement this function called cubic Bezier, which kind of allowed for me to control the acceleration and deceleration of those pages turning. So that way I could correctly display the OS icons on the pages, just again, make it more aesthetically pleasing.
Nice, thank you for that. And if anybody else has questions for Connor, go ahead and leave them in the chat. Let's leave a moment here, Connor, for your questions to roll in. If you ain't got none, then continue.
I do. I have a couple here for you, Connor. So great job. I love the, this is my first time seeing your app. So I was really, I've heard a lot about it, but I haven't seen it. And it's always great to, to see the outcome of what you guys produce. And because I hear all the chatter and everything about it. And so I'm impressed. It's really a great, I think, and a huge need. And I think your target audience on here, can you describe the target audience that that your team planned for this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Brandon may have mentioned it, but again, really just stems out to us wanting to branch it out to people who are technology illiterate, may not have access to technology. So in the event that there are nations where, like, we know not everybody has the same access to tech that we do. So we want to ensure that if and when they do have access, that this app will kind of help them guide their intro into utilizing those devices and OS systems. So, and then it was the age groups, we really didn't discriminate. So you could be super young, or an older adult who may not be privy with it, but yeah.
All right, fantastic. And you mentioned that your plans for the future are to become a platform developer. So what does that mean to the folks listening?
Sure. So basically, from what I've gathered, again, Salesforce, that CRM program is really just stands for Customer Relationship Management Program. Using it over the years as an employee, so user-sided, I'm using it just to perform my daily responsibilities. I found that kind of picked up on certain things that I've seen and done, and errors and walls that I've hit that have kind of, prevented me from doing my daily job, and which kind of prompted me to look further into Salesforce to where I could more or less apply the knowledge that I've gained through this cohort into becoming a developer for them. Just meaning I can structure out, an organization's Salesforce platform, make it super easy for their employees to navigate.
Excellent. And one last question I have, and I'm hoping that your peers might have questions for you here too, or some folks online. But what was the overall experience of working, online in this learning environment? And what was the big takeaway for you that you kind of really, the big aha moment that really, brought value to you in this program? Two parts to it.
Sure. So what it was like doing the virtual boot camp, I've done this a lot. I do a lot of Teams communication at work, so I was no stranger to it. And I was extremely grateful that we did have a group of, cohorts who would communicate very effectively, because I think that's obviously always the biggest thing. I say the same thing at where I work because I have to interact with multiple departments. But yeah, I mean, as far as that end goes, the virtual, to me, it didn't make too much difference. Brandon, Devin, everyone was always accessible. And then some, Abe, Eric, everyone was ready to go as soon as a question was brought up. So no one was ever inaccessible. So it didn't really hinder me at any given point. And my biggest takeaway, I was brand new to software engineering. I had dabbled with HTML and CSS a little bit prior to this, but getting into JavaScript was brand new to me. And it's incredible that we're here now, because in such a short time, it feels like you've been in the cohort, at one point for like a year, and then you come up and you're like, wow, it's only been 9 months, and you gain so much knowledge in terms of, again, like everything I used to take for granted, now knowing the work that goes into it and some of the things that I know how to do myself. So the immense amount of experience is just incredible, to be honest. So
congrats again. Great job. All right, I'm going
thanks.
to hand back to your peers or to any folks out on the listening in who want to ask a question. All right, so it looks like we've got 2 new coming out here. Will you utilize your new skills through your current employer, or are you looking for a new employer to use your skills?
So with my current employer, I know we have a tech department, not necessarily in-house where I work. I am in communication with our IT staff and management through our corporate office, whom I've talked to prior. So I believe, I would love to be able to contribute to them, obviously being with the business, I believe 7 years now. Granted, it's all been user-sided, but I know even sometimes that information to other software engineers so they can get a better idea maybe of what they need to work on could be helpful. So that would definitely be one, a goal of mine. But yeah, so just because it's limited with the current job I'm in, so.
Yeah, I think you'd be an asset to somebody who wants to do some more customization around Salesforce, definitely. And to expand your work with Salesforce on the back end rather than user side, that was another question there.
So, and to expand your work with Salesforce on the back end. So I would definitely want to, I would say, expand my knowledge personally on the back end of Salesforce. I have been doing their Trailhead and everything, as limited as that is. It's still learned a ton. And I do have to get privy with their proprietary coding language as well, but I've read it over before. It looks very Java-esque. So I think, again, Nebula has set me up for success in that way. So I won't struggle as much as if I were just reading it for the first time and not knowing. So.
Okay, one last one. What was your biggest takeaway from the capstone?
The capstone. I would say I think it was very similar with our Not Netflix project. Again, communication I feel like has to be so solid between each and every one of us. No one wants to overstep anyone. No one wants to, and I mean overstep in that we don't want code breaking someone else's, because it's like everyone's working extremely hard independently. And that's why it's so important in terms of if maybe I'm working on something that could affect Sarah's code, Sean's, or Marie's, I want to openly communicate to that and to them and make sure I'm on the same wavelength as to kind of what they're working on. And yeah, I mean, it's like, teamwork makes the dream work. That's it at the end of the day.
Excellent. Okay, I think that's it for our questions.